we're going to show you how to restart a high ABV stalled fermentation.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
It is white wine night.
Yes, it is.
We're drinking Riesling, and
And this is weird for us, huh?
yes, we've been working with white wines all night.
Yep. Moscato, Riesling, and now our Chardonnay.
Yeah, this is the third video that we've recorded tonight. So this particular wine is Chardonnay. It was started on the 20th of March, and it is the 22nd of May. About a week ago, I noticed that it had quit bubbling, and I took a gravity, and it was at 1.016, and we want it to go down to specific gravity of 1.000 or lower. 0.016 is going to be sweet. So I swirled it pretty aggressively. A lot of times that's all it takes, just to get stuff moved around and get the yeast off the bottom of the jar. And it did go down a little bit. It went from 1.016 to 1.014. It was at that point for several days. So I declared that it was stalled. So I did a yeast care package, and we have a video on what that is. It's basically yeast holes. It's yeast that has been hydrated in either Go Firm or Fermento, and you get the yeast nice and happy for about 2 hours, and then you put it into the stalled brew, and a lot of times that's enough to get it started again. This did not start, and I should add that I did check the pH. pH at the before I put the yeast care package in was 4.38, which is fine.
Yeah.
So pH wasn't an issue. We know that the water we used was good. The CO2 level wasn't too much, and you can tell that by swirling. If it gets fizzy like a soda pop, the CO2 could be an issue, and you need to degas it. The temperature was around 60 degrees, so that wasn't an issue. That's a good temperature for this Fresco cider yeast, I believe, even though it's not written on here.
It is Fresco cider yeast.
That's a good temperature for it. So I tried all those things. I checked all those things before I added the yeast care package. The problem that I knew that I was facing at that point was that the initial gravity was, she wrote on here 1.18, but I think it was actually 1.108, because 1.18 is full of sugar.
Okay, it
So
probably
I
was
think if
1.108.
you don't call it a typo when it's handwriting, it was a handwriting O. So I'm pretty sure the initial gravity was 1.108. So
Yes,
when
I
it
believe you're
stalled,
correct.
it was 1.014. So that was an ABV of 12.7% or so. At 12.7%, restarting a fermentation is very difficult. I've had it work. I mean, literally, I can count on one hand how many times it's worked. Most of the time it doesn't. So this video is to show you what we're doing on this particular one to restart this fermentation when a wine is over 10% or so. It's usually better to try this technique, which is, we're going to split this into two batches, which will be half the ABV, so they'll both be 6.4%, and we will restart the fermentation in those individual batches. So that's the technique we're going to be showing in this video. I've had success with this almost every time. It's a little more work than just throwing yeast in, but it works pretty consistently on a fermentation that is stalled. You will end up with 2 gallons of Chardonnay instead of 1 gallon. That's the good thing.
That's not bad.
So there are a couple ways you can do the splitting. You could add water and water this down. I wouldn't suggest that because you're going to have a pretty weak tasting wine. So we'll show you how we are going to accomplish this. So we mixed up a new, was a quart of Chardonnay Nature Blessed concentrate. This is a gallon of water with that concentrate in it. So this is basically like creating a whole new batch. It right now has an initial gravity of 1.11. It has a pH level of 5.01. So this is after I adjusted it. If you don't know how to do these things, we do have videos. You can actually watch the how to make a Chardonnay, and we'll be showing you how to make exactly what this must is, a brand new batch of Chardonnay. 1 gallon batch. So what we're going to end up doing is putting half of this 1 gallon into this carboy once we empty this carboy, because we have 0 extra carboys.
We are running a little short on carboys right now.
And then we have another glass carboy that is empty. So we'll end up putting half of this into one carboy, half of this into the other carboy, so they're both half full. We will start fermentation in them, and then tomorrow I will add half of this stalled one to each one of those carboys. So because we're low on carboys, because we have no extra carboys, we're going to use this as a holder for this stalled batch while we're starting our new batch. So the point of this is that the new batches, this new batch of Chardonnay is going to have 12, 15 hours to get a nice fermentation going before we start adding the stalled batch, so that it's got a whole lot of health and life before we add whatever. There could be some problem with this, something that is not good that we haven't caught. So we want to give this a good amount of time to start up before we add this to it. The end result is both gallons should go dry. So we will know by the end of the video if that worked. So Julie named this the March 2024 Take 2 Chardonnay. And that was because I think it was the second March 2024 Chardonnay that we made. So what I named this new batch note is
Take 3?
March 2024 Take 2.5.
Oh, take 2.5, sorry.
So you do want to keep your batch label for the batch. What I sometimes will start 2 new batch labels, because this really is kind of 2 new brews being started. But I think in this case, I'm going to keep this batch note on one of these, just so that I'm not wasteful, because I don't want to be wasteful. But in the past, I usually will start 2 new batch notes. So this was batch 28. The new batch note would be 28-1 and 28-2. And each one of them would have their own notes, their own life from that point on. But like I said, I'm going to keep using this one just because I'm going to do that.
Because there's still space left on it.
So the first thing we need to do is get this out of this vessel so that I can clean it and pour half of this into it. So we'll do that and be back with you. So Julie usually helps me rack.
And he's replaced me now.
If you are doing this by yourself, you don't want the hose to come out when you're in the middle of racking, or it'll go all over the floor, or the bar in this case. So if you take the grommet out, put the hose in there, the hole in the lid will keep the hose from falling out. So you can actually rack safely by yourself.
See, you don't need me anymore.
I'm giving her a break. Oh, I need you. The wine might have been okay for some people having a little sweet taste, but I gave her a taste of it, and she made an ugly face. And somebody this pretty making an ugly face, you know that it's a serious thing. So.
Oh my gosh. I don't like sweet Chardonnay.
No, you might have been able to find something to do with it. Maybe carbonating it would have.
Yeah. Oh, man. I lost one of my opportunities for natural carbonation.
Well, that would have been a bottle bomb because there's so much sugar in here. You'd never be able to control.
That's true. And you have plenty of stuff to carbonate. So.
I have a backlog of stuff to force carbonate. And we will have videos very soon on forced carbonation.
Yep.
I'm still trying to get my equipment down to where it's very easily reproduced for you people that don't have the forced carbonation equipment. And I still have things that leak where they're not supposed to leak, and other little issues that I'm working out. So once that's done, our fridge right now is full of Franken wines.
Literally full.
That need to be carbonated. And then we'll start giving you videos of some really cool ideas of things you can do with Diet Dr. Pepper and Code Red Mountain Dew. But yeah, we have one shelf that's reserved for this height of a vessel, and in fact, the Riesling that we just got done doing, there's not room for it in the fridge right now.
Nope, there is not.
I don't want the lees that's at the bottom of this to follow into the new batches, which is why I'm racking this. Otherwise, you could have just poured it in, but since I don't know exactly why it's stalled, with 2% ABV still that should have been fermented. So I'm not taking any chances of maybe something that's at the bottom of this might be something that the yeast doesn't like. So I'm just taking the wine off the lees. So that it's just wine going into our. I mean, there's going to be some yeast in here too that's still floating, but I'm getting rid of most of the used yeast and hulls, and a lot of the fermento or whatever else might have been used in this is at the bottom. Okay, so Julie pointed out that it doesn't look like these are equal, but they are 64 ounces into each. I used our measuring pitcher, so
He did.
this one is a little shorter than that one, so they're just slightly different dimensions. So half is into each one of these now. We racked our stall into here. So now we're going to go ahead and pour our yeast in.
Let me bring over the happy yeast.
This has been sitting for 2 hours next to a heater.
And which yeast are we using?
Okay, so normally we used a 1/4 cup of must, and into that we add 2 teaspoons of Go Firm and a teaspoon of yeast. But because I was planning to do this in one batch, this is actually a 1/2 cup, and I used double those amounts. So there's 4 teaspoons of Go Firm and 2 teaspoons of Fresco cider yeast. So I'm going to pour half into each one of these. If you don't get it exactly half, it's not going to be the end of the day. Just make sure that it's close. Okay, and the last 1/4 cup goes into here. Because there's so much room in here at a 1/2 gallon, we don't need to use a blow-off tube tonight. We'll just put airlocks on these. And then tomorrow,
if it foams that much, we really did something right.
I want to make sure that these things are going really good, so I'm going to keep these out by our heater tonight. They're not going to go into our 55-degree fermenting room, which is closer to 60 degrees right now for reasons I won't get into. But then tomorrow, I will use a funnel and pour half of this into each one of these. I do have etched marks on these to show me where the gallon mark is so that I can know where the first gallon is full at. But I do want to give this yeast probably 24 hours, but if I look at it 12 hours from now and think it's really going well, then I'll put half of it in there. But then we'll wait for probably a week, and hopefully both of these are going to be done. And that's how you fix a complicated high ABV sweet Chardonnay stall. We think. We'll be back in a few seconds here for you, which will be probably a week for us, and we'll know. Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks, and they both went dry, or I'll say that one of them is dry and one of them is really close. So this one is 1.000, so dry. This one is 1.003 as of about 3 hours ago when I measured
close.
it. But you can still see activity, especially on this one. So it's still doing its thing. And honestly, we tasted it last night, and even if it didn't lose any more sugar, it still
tastes good.
Tastes decent.
Yeah.
So I didn't add the stalled must to this until it had gotten pretty active 24 hours later. You can see a lot of bubbling from the new fermentation, and make sure that it is doing really well before you start adding the problematic stalled must.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. It worked fine. I've never had it fail, so
knock on wood.
So yeah, it's a great way of taking a high ABV stall and making it no longer a stall.
And not wasting anything.
She mentioned when she tasted the 1.000 that it was better than what she's tasted that we've made before. I don't know that that's...
I don't know why. But...
I don't know what is different. This is going to be very hard to reproduce if there was something magical that we came up with during this, But
yeah, I think it was good. So thank you for watching this video. Hope it was really informative. I'm sure we are not the only ones to have experienced a stall, and this is a great way to fix that when it's a high ABV and doesn't want to start back up with our yeast care package. So thank you for watching. Please like the video, ask questions, make comments, subscribe to our channel, if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Until next time, cheers.